He stumbled into her life bleeding, broken, and hunted. She saved him without knowing he was a billionaire CEO whose enemies wanted him dead. But when her kindness melts his guarded heart and her little son calls him Daddy, the truth explodes in the most shocking way possible. If you love intense twists, secret identities, and emotional roller coasters, hit subscribe and dive into this addictive story now. Rain hammered the tin roof of the tiny countryside house as single mother Emma Collins dragged the injured stranger inside, her hands trembling not with fear but determination, because she had always been the type to help anyone in need no matter how hard life had been on her. And life had indeed been cruel. Her ex-husband had vanished before their son Noah was even born, leaving her to juggle motherhood, part-time waitressing, and endless bills in a town that forgot her the moment she stopped being useful. Still, compassion was all she had left, so when she found the unconscious, bleeding man near the forest edge on her way home from work, she didn't hesitate even for a second, despite the storm, despite the danger, despite knowing nothing about him except that he had collapsed whispering, "Don't let them find me," before passing out. And as she laid him on her couch and cleaned the deep gash across his ribs, she wondered who he was and what he was running from, unaware that the man she saved, Alexander Drake, was the enigmatic, ruthless, impossibly powerful CEO of Drake Industries, the youngest in the country, a man known for his cold heart, sharp mind, and an empire built on steel, tech, and money, a man who had vanished from the public eye 2 days ago after a corporate sabotage meeting turned into an assassination attempt orchestrated by his own cousin, Marcus, who believed eliminating Alex would give him control of the company. But here, in a tiny rented home smelling of lavender and warm soup, the same man everyone feared opened his eyes to the softest face he'd ever seen, a pair of warm brown eyes looking at him with concern instead of greed or calculation, and for the first time in years, Alex felt something tug inside his chest, something unfamiliar and disarming, especially when a sleepy little boy peeked around the corner and asked, "Mommy, is he a superhero who got hurt?" Making Emma blush and Alex actually smile, though it twisted into pain because his injuries were worse than either of them realized, and despite Emma insisting she should call the police or an ambulance, Alex grabbed her hand weakly, whispering, "Please, no authorities, I'm not safe," and something in his eyes, a vulnerable flicker, convinced her not to question him further, so she sat by him throughout the night, cooling his fever, changing his bandages, feeding him spoonfuls of broth, while Noah kept bringing his stuffed dinosaur to protect him from monsters. And though Alex tried to keep his guard up, the warmth of this broken little family seeped through the cracks in his icy exterior. In the days that followed, as Alex recovered under Emma's care, he watched her fight through exhaustion, juggling work and motherhood, fixing Noah's lunches at dawn, stitching uniforms, reading bedtime stories, and still finding time to check his temperature or make him tea. And every time she smiled, something inside him softened, though he hid his identity carefully, introducing himself simply as Alex, a traveling businessman who had gotten mugged on the road. But Emma never pushed, never probed, never took advantage, making him feel unseen yet finally understood in a way wealth never allowed. And when he offered to pay her for her help, she shook her head fiercely, saying, "Kindness isn't for sale," a phrase that burned into him deeper than any wound. As the week passed, the bond between Alex and little Noah grew stronger. Noah would crawl next to him, showing him drawings of superheroes, and Alex, despite being the most feared CEO in the corporate world, somehow found himself cutting paper capes and taping them to the boys' toys, laughing softly for the first time since childhood. And Emma would watch them from the kitchen with a heart she tried very hard to keep steady because she had sworn never to fall for anyone again, especially not a mysterious stranger who would eventually walk out the door. So she kept her distance emotionally no matter how much warmth flickered in Alex's eyes when he caught her glancing. But peace never lasted long, and one evening, as Alex attempted to stand on his own and nearly collapsed, Emma rushed to him, her hands catching his shoulders, her face so close his breath tangled, and just as he whispered her name like a confession, the entire house shook with a thunderous knock, 3 sharp, commanding bangs, followed by a voice shouting, "Alexander Drake. We know you're inside." And Emma froze, her eyes widening because she knew that name, the entire country knew that name, and she stared at him in disbelief and hurt as he whispered, "Emma, I can explain." Before the door burst open and armed men in tactical suits stormed in, not assassins but Alex's own private security team, led by his loyal head of security, Carter, who had tracked him after finding traces in the forest. And instead of relief, Alex felt panic as Emma pulled Noah behind her, trembling, realizing she had let a billionaire stranger into her home, a man involved in danger she never asked for. And before Alex could speak, Carter barked orders to evacuate him immediately to the secure headquarters, insisting the attackers might return any minute, but Alex refused to leave until he faced Emma properly, and with the security team waiting outside, he stood before her and confessed his identity, his company, the attack, and why he had lied, but instead of anger, Emma simply gave a sad, tired smile, saying, "People like you don't stay in places like this." Noah got attached. And so did I, making Alex's chest ache painfully as he reached for her hand, promising that he would return, that this wasn't the end, but she gently stepped back, letting him go because she believed the worlds they came from could never exist together. Yet, after Alex returned to the city and re-entered his empire, reclaiming control, exposing Marcus, and surviving a second assassination attempt, he couldn't get Emma out of his mind. Her kindness, her strength, her eyes that looked straight at him without flinching from his status. And 1 month later, after ensuring the threats were fully neutralized, Alex made the boldest decision of his life by driving back to her small town, walking into the diner where she worked, wearing no suit, no entourage, just himself, and when she saw him, she dropped the tray in shock as he walked up and quietly said, "I came home," and though she tried to tell him she didn't belong in his world, he shook his head, telling her, "I don't want that world without you in it," and Noah, hearing Alex's voice, ran out from the back yelling, "Alex! You came back!" Launching into his arms, sealing the decision that Emma could no longer deny. Alex wasn't there out of gratitude, he was there because he had fallen in love with her warmth, with her fairness, with the simple life she fought to protect. But the twist came when a final envelope arrived at Emma's doorstep, a forged legal threat from Marcus's remaining allies, warning her that Alex's relationship with her could become leverage to destroy him, and Emma, terrified of putting Alex and Noah at risk, packed her bags to vanish before he could get hurt again. But Alex, anticipating her fear, arrived just in time, showing her proof that he had demolished every threat, placed security around her home, and legally secured protection for her and Noah, confessing with raw honesty that the world was dangerous with or without him, but he wanted to face it with her by his side, not apart. And for the first time, Emma let herself cry openly into his chest, finally accepting that love wasn't something she had to run from anymore, that this man, this powerful CEO she saved without knowing who he was, had chosen her not as a dead but as a future. And as Alex lifted Noah into his arms and kissed Emma with the promise of a lifetime, Emma realized that sometimes the most unexpected strangers don't just change your life, they become your destiny. And from that stormy night to the moment they stood together under a calm sky, their story proved that kindness could heal the broken, love could reshape empires, and even a single mother in a forgotten town could capture the heart of the most untouchable man alive.